11 signs that the U.S. economy is in far worse shape than most people think, Michael Snyder reports. Unless you're living under a bridge or you're eagerly drinking the Kool-Aid that the mainstream media is dishing out, you probably understand that the economy has been struggling. Survey after survey has found that the American people are deeply dissatisfied with how the economy has been performing, and as a result, it has become the number one issue this election season. But even though a large portion of the population is not happy about how things have been going, the truth is that the situation is far more dire than most people realize. Just this week, we have received quite a bit of very troubling news, and the outlook for the months ahead is very bleak. The following are 11 signs that the U.S. economy is in far worse shape than most people think. Number 1. Just like in 2008, delinquencies are on the rise. In fact, credit card delinquencies have now reached the highest level that we have seen in more than 10 years. Meanwhile, more consumers are not making loan payments on time. Credit card delinquencies have hit their highest level in over a decade, and auto delinquencies are also spiking. This could prove to be yet another tripwire for the stock market, as consumer spending accounts for about 70% of the U.S. economic activity. Number 2, the commercial real estate crisis just continues to escalate. An article that originally appeared in the New York Times claims that major Wall Street banks have begun offloading their portfolio of commercial real estate loans, hoping to cut their losses. Some Wall Street banks worried that landlords of vacant and struggling office buildings will not be able to pay off their mortgages have begun offloading their portfolios of commercial real estate loans, hoping to cut their losses. It's an early but telling sign of the broader distress brewing in the commercial real estate market, which is hurting from the twin punches of high interest rates, which make it harder to refinance loans, and low occupancy rates for office buildings, an outcome of the pandemic. Number 3, when banks get into trouble, they start shutting down branches. So far this year, U.S. banks have closed more than 400 branches all over the country. U.S. banks closed 51 branches across the country in the first 3 weeks of June. The figures suggest banks are committed to increasing offering their services online in axing cost bricks and mortar locations. More than 400 bank branches have closed so far in 2024. Number 4, big companies are laying off workers from coast to coast. For example, approximately 500 Texas truckers just lost their jobs when a large logistics company abruptly shut their doors for good. A truck and logistics company has abruptly shut, affecting 2,000 workers just 3 years after being bought by private equity. Out of the blue, staff at U.S. Logistics Solutions were given news on Thursday that they were out of a job and would also not get their paychecks on Friday. Around 500 were truck drivers, and the rest a mixture of warehouse, dock, and office workers at the Hubbell, Texas-based company. Number 5, the Dallas Fed Services Index has now been in negative territory for 25 months in a row. This is the 25th straight month of contraction, sub-zero for the Dallas Fed Services Index, and judging by the respondents' comments, there's a clear place to point a finger of blame. Number 6, the restaurant apocalypse just continues to intensify. This week we learned that Hooters has suddenly decided to permanently shut down close to 40 underperforming locations. The Atlanta-based sports bar chain Hooters abruptly shuttered dozens of underperforming restaurants across the U.S. as it joins a growing list of eateries facing the harsh realities of inflation and changing consumer habits, according to reports. Nation's Restaurant News, NRN, reported that word began to spread on Sunday evening that Hooters locations in places like Bryan, Texas, Lakeland, Florida, and Louisville, Kentucky were closing abruptly, with nearly 40 restaurants in the U.S. shutting their doors. Number 7, retail chains continue to go belly up at a staggering rate. Today it was being reported that two large retailers in the Northeast have made a decision to file for bankruptcy. Two sister chains that sell sporting goods have filed for bankruptcy as retailers continue to struggle. Bob's Stores, which sells athletic and casual clothing, and outdoor gear retailer Eastern Mountain Sports, together have 50 stores across the Northeast of America. Number 8. We just learned that consumer confidence in the U.S. dropped lower this month. The U.S. consumer confidence teetering slightly in June as Americans grew a little warier about the future, new data released Tuesday showed. The Conference Board's latest consumer confidence index dipped to 100.4 in June from a downwardly revised level of 101.3 in May. Number 9. The initial consumer confidence reading has been revised down in 7 of the last 8 months. Number 10. Housing in the U.S. is now more unaffordable than it has ever been before. The housing cost burden has hit a record, according to a new report from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. Home prices are now 47% higher than they were in early 2020. Can you imagine? Well, that's almost 50% more. With the median sale price now 5 times the median household income, according to the study. Number 11, as I discussed yesterday, he says the homeless population in the city of Chicago tripled from January 2023 to January 2024. The number of Chicagoans living in city shelters or city streets tripled between January 2023 and January 2024, according to the annual survey used by federal officials to track homelessness, city officials announced on Friday. Those are at the bottom of the economic food chain are being hit the hardest by the harsh economic conditions that we have been experiencing. Homelessness, poverty, hunger, and theft are all on the rise, and many of those that have struggling communities say they are being absolutely overwhelmed because they simply do not have sufficient resources to meet all of the needs. Sadly, I'm entirely convinced that this is just the beginning. I believe that conditions will eventually become much harsher as the economy continues to deteriorate during the months ahead. But Joe Biden and his minions insist that everything is just great. In fact, they would like you to believe that the economy is booming right now. You can believe it if you want, but the cold hard numbers that we keep getting directly contradict the endless streams of propaganda that we're constantly being fed. And this is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder. About the author, Michael Snyder's extremely controversial new book entitled Chaos is available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books that are available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the most important news. And he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.